rather, when we're looking at the tabulation, or should I say rather the application of bills within Parliament, I would rather also want to take a significant approach towards understanding the role of Parliament played towards driving transformation in Zimbabwe, especially around developing a middle-income economy by the year 2030.
Okay, I think we can locate the role of Parliament by looking at the constitutional roles that it plays.
Sure.
So, for example, it's about ensuring that the legislative framework is in place. So the laws that Parliament is passing, ease of doing business laws are critical. But also what is important is playing an oversight role on ensuring that government expenditure is going to the targeted areas where we would expect public funds to be channeled towards if we're going to achieve a middle income economy by 2030. It also involves ensuring that ministries account to Parliament. They're required to submit quarterly budget reports, and ensuring that ministries effectively do that and do that on time to allow Parliament to review the progress with regards to expenditure, whether funds that have been earmarked for certain projects have actually been released, whether they have been used for those projects. What then we can do as a nation to sort of respond to those challenges.
Right. Now, looking at some of the legislative structures that have been put in place, do you feel that they speak towards addressing issues of economic recovery? And when I say so, I mean the strength of their positioning at the moment.
I think they do. I think they do. The thing with setting up a framework is you don't always get it right, all of it at the same time. So it requires us to continue revising, to continue having a look, continue learning from other countries to see what we can borrow to ensure that we have a strong framework that is in place, and making sure that we follow through with the reforms that are actually happening.
Right. Another area being a proportional representation, a quota that entered into last year's phase, I think for 2020 up to 2023 rather.
Yes.
How important was this establishment?
It was important for the 8th Parliament. We saw an increase in the number of female legislators in Parliament. Sadly, the number of constituency-based female MPs went down in the 9th Parliament, which points to the fact that the challenge relating to female participation in politics in Parliament requires so much more than just the framework that is in the Constitution. We need to go beyond that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We will be crossing over to the State House as we look at the current deliberations.
We are coming to you live from State House, where all is set for today's State of the Nation address by His Excellency President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. The two vice presidents, Comrade Kembo Mohadi and retired General Dr. Constantino Gouveia Chiwenga, are both here together with other important dignitaries. Of course, we understand this is the first such a virtual address by the President, as he also sets the legislative agenda for the remaining sessions of Parliament. But today the President will be also opening the 3rd session of the 9th Parliament of Zimbabwe. Of course, helping Parliament to take a look at and also address the remaining bills that are supposed to be passed into law. We understand quite a number of bills have since gone through Parliament, and some have also gone to Senate and now are awaiting assent by the President. Now, it's a very important day today, as Zimbabweans will also get to follow proceedings via online platforms, and of course we understand as the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation we are giving you this live coverage of what is taking place here at State House, as well as other online platforms. Of course, members of Parliament and senators will also be following proceedings from Parliament building in Harare. So this is the first such address by the President, who is talking to the nation virtually. Of course, we understand this is all necessitated by the need to curb the spread of the novel coronavirus, which has ravaged economies and all throughout the world. And we'll be expecting the arrival of the President shortly, and all is set here at State House. It looks like we are all ready to listen to the address by the President. It's back to the studio.
Of course, still looking forward to the address that will be taking place shortly. We will be giving you live updates on that there. We are going to cross over live to more engagements that are currently taking place at the moment at the Senate, where we'll be listening in, of course, to Madam President Mabel Chinomana, who will also be giving a few of her insights to the deliberations that will be taking place today. I am currently joined in the studio by Mr. Rashave, who also will be sharing with some of his perspectives. Stay tuned. All right, then unfortunately we won't be able to give you more of those visuals at the moment, but I am fortunately enough joined in studio by Mr. Mashabe. Now, briefly before we get back to the quota, tell us a bit about the significance and application of the Senate.
What we have in Zimbabwe is what is referred to as a bicameral parliament, where we have two chambers. And I think the significance there is we have the benefit of having a second look at any proposed legislation, for example, from a house that is composed slightly different from the National Assembly, where we have representation of the chiefs in the house. We have representation for people with disabilities in the Senate. So it's benefit of re-looking at any business that comes through the National Assembly, right. Applying maybe the grey hairs of the country to business that would have gone through the National Assembly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Now, also, we're touching on, of course, the proportional representation quota coming to an end by 2023. Any notable achievements, in your opinion, since the coming into effect of the quota in Parliament?
I think so. We have had an increase in the exposure of women to politics and their participation thereof. But more importantly, as an organization, we have noticed the increase in the participation of women in Parliament business. I would, for example, give the tremendous participation in the 2018-2019 budget, where they made notable submissions that they were commended for by the Speaker. They ask critical questions that speak true to over half of the population, which is female. Mm-hmm. So those are notable achievements. We really have champions that were introduced into Parliament through the quota system, and I think Parliament business has benefited from having a strong female presence in Parliament.
Okay. Slightly drawing back to the significance of the Senate, do we have does that contribute towards a more efficient application when it comes to governance within our democracy?
I would think it does. It's always good to have a second look after going through a process, and it helps having a different voice compared to the voices that we have in the National Assembly. It really adds to the richness and to the voices of Zimbabweans that participate in the national discourse, in national business. So I would think it does benefit us having a Senate. Yeah.
Right. Of course, that also speaking towards the legislative agenda. What, in your opinion, do you feel should be done in line with research? There is, you can see on your screens, sorry for that there, of course, the President making his way at the State House, of course, for the steps towards the State of the Nation address. We will be making sure that we do give you that live broadcast as the deliberations that do take place. We also will be giving you an in-depth assessment, rather, of the 9th Assembly during the course of our deliberations here in studio. Now, I'm looking, of course, at research, rather, and its significance. Tell us a bit about some of the tangible results that have come towards research and national development.
What I think is we need a concerted effort towards making research key to national development, building a knowledge-based community, providing the know-how of how we can, for example, say.
As you can see on your screens there, President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa inspecting the presidential guard, a significant step that is taken towards rather the State of the Nation address, which we will be giving you shortly, as we of course will be engaging in more deliberations right here in the studio.
1810. All formed up, open order, ready for inspection. Your Excellency.
Our special broadcast, we're looking at the State of the Nation address, and as you can see on your screens, President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa inspecting the presidential guard, a significant step that's rather made, of course, as we go towards the address that will be taking place very shortly. We'll also be looking very closely at the 9th Assembly for the Parliament of Zimbabwe during the course of deliberations, where it will be opened, of course, by Speaker Advocate Jacob Mdenda. We also earlier on crossed over to the Senate, where we saw Madam President Mabel Chinomona as the Senate made their way together. If you just joined us, of course, the President inspecting the presidential guard at the moment, and if you do stay tuned, we will be giving you, of course, a live broadcast of the State of the Nation address. The podium shortly to, of course, give the nation the State of the Nation address, which we are looking forward to shortly. We will be giving you more updates of that as the progress carries on.
The Honorable President of the Senate and the honorable members, I now call upon His Excellency, the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, to address the joint sitting of both houses of Parliament on the state of the nation in terms of Section 140, subsection 4 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Comrade President.
General Retired Dr. C.G. D.N. Chiwenga, Honorable Vice President, Colonel Retired Comrade K.C.D. Mohadi, Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Advocate J.F. Mdenda, Madam President of the Senate, my M.M. Chinomona, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Dr. T. Kupe, Honorable Members of Parliament, fellow Zimbabweans, Mr. Speaker, Madam President, I warmly welcome you all to the State of the Nation address and official opening of the third session of the 9th Parliament of Zimbabwe. The need to abide by COVID-19 protocols has compelled us to adopt this virtual platform for this occasion and similar ones, when in ordinary times we would have assembled in our Parliament building. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, our economy has faced a number of internal shocks in an environment of changing climate conditions, sanctions, and lately the COVID-19 pandemic. First and foremost, therefore, I want to sincerely thank all Zimbabweans for their cooperation, discipline, and resilience during these unprecedented times. Let us continue in unity and resolve to find solutions to challenges which confront us today. Our heartfelt sympathies are with all individuals and families who lost loved ones. Normalcy is gradually being restored to our systems following the COVID-19 pandemic. However, I appeal to us to carry on adhering to the World Health Organization guidelines to consolidate the gains we have so far achieved. We have now reopened our skies to domestic and international flights and simultaneously allowed the tourism and other critical sectors to also reopen. Government made a deliberate decision to reopen schools to enable our children, who constitute our rich future human resource endowment, to conclude the year and progress to the next grades in the coming year. We will redouble efforts to ensure that syllabi are completed and examinations proceed smoothly in a safe, secure, and stable environment for both teachers and learners. Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam President, our transitional stabilization program has delivered, and there are causes for optimism. My government is indeed encouraged by the current economic stability evident since the launch of the foreign exchange auction system in June. The system has resulted in the stability of the foreign currency rate as well as the prices of our goods and services. To mitigate the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, government availed Zimbabwe dollars 18 billion stimulus package for the productive sectors, vulnerable social groups, and the provision of public services, especially health, water, and sanitation. In spite of the global and the local economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, our exports increased by 4.9% to US dollars 1.96 billion during the first half of 2020, from US dollars 1.86 billion in 2019 for the comparative period. Meanwhile, imports declined by 5.9% from US dollars 1.96 billion to US dollars 1.84 billion during the 2019 and the 2020 first half comparative periods, respectively. In addition, foreign current as at end of August 2020, coupled with diaspora remittances, these should continue to anchor and drive further stability. The reported increased certification of new products by the Standards Association of Zimbabwe is another positive signal that our industry is indeed alive and that jobs are being created. We expect the trend of the positive trend balance to be sustained through increased productivity and exports across all sectors of our economy. The attainment of Vision 2030 is premised on a performance-oriented and results-driven culture. Thus, the reform of state enterprises and parastatals remains a priority as we revisit the strategic importance of these entities in line with Vision 2030. Strong structural and administrative frameworks will be enforced together with good corporate governance, accountability, transparency, productivity, and profitability in all state-owned entities. Going forward, government will soon launch the first 5-year National Development Strategy 2021 to 2025, which builds on the successes of the Transitional Stabilization Program. The National Development Strategy 1 will guide the formulation of the 2021 national budget, which will provide more detail on the state of our economy. The fight against corruption continues to be a central goal for my government. This vice cannot coexist with sustainable economic development and growth. Therefore, let us all strengthen our determination to rid Zimbabwe of corruption. Nobody is above the law. Justice shall be pursued. Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam President, the historic signing of the Global Compensation Agreement reaffirmed the irreversibility of the land reform program. It further symbolized my government's commitment to the entrenchment of constitutionalism, the rule of law, and the respect for property rights. It is now incumbent on all of us to ensure production and productivity is galvanized on our land. The Meteorological Department has forecasted a normal to above normal 2020-2021 rainfall season. We must therefore ensure that all measures are in place for a successful agriculture season. I commend communities throughout the country for the land preparations made under the Presidential Climate-Proved Agriculture Program, Fumbudza in Twasa. The Presidential Input Support Scheme will see over 1.8 million households being supported with the free inputs to grow maize and traditional grains, while cotton farmers will also continue to receive support. Input distribution under this facility has commenced in earnest. The opening up of the horticulture space for our rural communities as a vehicle for improved economic inclusion and empowerment is essential. To this end, my government has resolved to roll out the Presidential Horticulture Scheme. Furthermore, the accelerated resuscitation and development of irrigation schemes, as well as construction of dams in all our provinces, will help climate-proof our agriculture against the adverse effects of climate change. To meet the funding gaps, private sector-led financing models are being rolled out for our farmers to access both mechanization and inputs. Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam President, energy is an essential enabler for the realization of our modernization and industrialization agenda. The current stability in power supplies, owing to improved hydropower generation at Kariba Dam and increased energy output at the thermal power plants, has had a positive impact on productivity across all sectors of the economy. Independent power producers are equally poised to feed additional power onto the national grid by the second quarter of 2021. The ongoing coal mining projects in Hwange district will ultimately translate into an increased national generation capacity of over 6,000 megawatts by 2025. This will see Zimbabwe becoming a net exporter of energy. Work on the Hwange 7 and 8 expansion project will be expedited following delays as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since my previous address to this august House, fuel supplies have stabilized as a result of a raft of policies put in place by my government. We shall continue to strengthen competitiveness in the fuel subsector and energy sector as a whole through innovations coming out of institutions of higher learning such as the Harare Institute of Technology. Road construction, modernization and rehabilitation are going on throughout all provinces of our country. These will enhance connectivity, and facilitate greater economic trade within our country as well as the region as a whole. The use of local financial resources, skills, and companies is yielding impressive results, and the model will be vigorously pursued going forward in other infrastructure projects. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, my government, through its people-centered policies and the vibrant social protection interventions, has ensured timely and appropriate interventions for the vulnerable and the food insecure households. Currently, over 700,000 households receive grain per month, while others are benefiting from the Cash for Grain program under the Urban Feeding Program. The schools feeding program is being resourced, and over 1 million children will be assisted under the Basic Education Assistance module. The ongoing reforms in the health service sector will improve accessibility and affordability of health and medicines for all our people. In our quest to facilitate housing delivery, the National Housing Fund and the Housing Guarantee Fund will be recapitalized. Consultations in the tripartite negotiating forum are progressing well with regards to the establishment of an unemployment benefit fund. The fund will cover workers in case of retrenchment or natural disasters which cause work stoppages. Related to this, I have directed the Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare to set up a robust labor market information system to facilitate the provision of timeous, reliable labor market information and associated policies. Government takes note of the legitimate calls for better working conditions by our teachers, health workers, and the public service in general. We will do our best to ameliorate their concerns and improve their plight. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, the Second Republic continues to consolidate its engagement and re-engagement policy. Economic cooperation and trade within our region is being consolidated towards awakening the collective potential of our respective countries, region, and the continent as a whole. The illegal economic sanctions imposed are an albatross to our socio-economic development and the growth, and must be removed unconditionally. We remain grateful to SADC, the African Union, member states, and the many others who continue to echo this call with us. Our defense and security forces, who are defending the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and national interest, as well as maintaining law, peace, and order in our great country, are commended for their sterling work. I want to reiterate that my government will not tolerate any forms of criminality in our country. Those who dare to engage in unlawful activities will face the full wrath of the law. It is pleasing that the long-awaited and the all-encompassing Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Act has now been promulgated. This will entail more holistic attention to issues affecting all categories of our veterans, who now include ex-combatants, ex-political prisoners, detainees and restrictees, non-competent cadres, and the war collaborators. Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam President, the second session of the 9th Parliament of Zimbabwe had 25 bills on its legislative agenda and an additional 15 other bills which were not on the initial agenda. As of 22nd September 2020, a total of 10 of these bills were passed by Parliament. I therefore call upon the third session of the 9th Parliament to expedite the completion of processes with regards to all outstanding bills, the enactment of which will help to deepen the ongoing economic reforms as well as entrench constitutionalism and our democratic culture. To buttress the economic gains made to date and enhance our attractiveness as a preferred investment destination, as well as the ease of doing business in our country, the following legislation will be attended to. The Sugar Industry Act will amend the Sugar Industry Production Control Act, Chapter 18:19. The Economic Empowerment Act is set to replace the Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Act, Chapter 14:33, which will be repealed. The Competition Act will be amended to align it with regional and international agreements, particularly the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Given the role of small to medium-sized enterprises and the informal sector, the Savings and the Credit Cooperative Societies Act, Chapter 24:05, will be amended. It is pleasing to note the immense progress made in the mining sector towards the realization of a US $12 billion mining sector by 2023. Concerted and collaborative efforts must be urgently pursued to conclude the amendments to the Mines and Minerals Act. This will in turn usher in the necessary processes for the amendment of the Precious Stones and the Gold Trade Acts. Meanwhile, the Minamata Convention, which will end the use of mercury in the mining activities, will be tabled for ratification. New and less harmful alternative technologies should be speedily adopted to ensure sustainable mining in our country. To support the achievement of the US $5 billion tourism sector by 2030, the Zimbabwe Tourism Act and the Parks and Wildlife Act will be tabled for consideration. The amendments will encourage tourism investment and embedded community-based wildlife management. The unmitigated spike in cases of vandalism of power infrastructure is bleeding the economy and disrupting productivity and the key services to our economic sectors. The Electricity Act will be amended to increase the mandatory sentences for the perpetrators, while the Copper Control Act, Chapter 14:06, will also be amended to curb illegal possession and the trade of copper products. In line with the devolution and decentralization policy, which guides the nation towards inclusive and rapid socio-economic development, industrialization and modernization, and the quest to give more autonomy to the local authorities, the third session of Parliament will consider the following bills: the Provincial Councils and Amendment Bill, the Traditional Leaders Amendment Bill, the Urban Councils and the Rural District Councils Act will be amended as envisioned by the Constitution. Meanwhile, the Regional Town Country Planning Act, Environmental Management Act, Roads Act, the Public Health Act, Education Act, Shop Licensing Act, the Housing Building Act, and the Water Act and the Liquor Licensing Act will also be amended to enhance the devolution of powers and functions to the lower tiers of government. In view of our ongoing efforts to stimulate the construction industry, coupled with the general growth of the subsector, Parliament will consider a bill that seeks to establish the Construction Industry Council, which will regulate the industry. In pursuit of Education 5.0 model, the third session of the 9th Parliament must dispense with 3 bills from the higher and the tertiary education sector in line with the Constitution, namely the Manpower Planning and Development Amendment Bill, the Center for Education, Innovation, Research and Development Bill, and the State Universities Amendment Bill. The Youth Bill will set the parameters to regulate youth development and empowerment promotion, vocational training and skills development, financial inclusion, youth participation and leadership, as well as national service. The bill will also provide measures to strengthen the Zimbabwe Youth Council and its sub-structures. The Sport Integrity Bill will also be introduced to eliminate the corrosive and the corrupt practices such as competition manipulation, illegal baiting, doping, as well as riots and violence within that sector. The harmonization of laws in the sport and the recreation sector will entail various pieces of legislation being presented to the August House. These include the Sport, Leisure and Recreation Bill, which will repeal the Sports and Recreation Commission Act and the Zimbabwe Boxing and Wrestling Control Board of 1956. The enactment of the Freedom of Information Bill into law during the second session was a significant milestone in our media reform program to increase media diversity and pluralism in the country. These bills must ensure that our media industry act in the national interest and propel the development of our country. The third session of the 9th Parliament is thus expected to complete the outstanding media bills, which include the Zimbabwe Media Commission Bill, the Broadcasting Services Amendment Bill, and the Protection of Personal Information Bill. The enactment of the Cybersecurity and the Data Protection Bill, which was introduced in the second session of the 9th Parliament of Zimbabwe, must be speeded up. More so given the importance of robust and secure information systems to drive digital services in all sectors of our economy. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, during the third session, we also expect the finalization of the Citizenship and Immigration Amendment Bills and the Police Act. The prevalence of abuse and violence against children place a demand on us to quickly guarantee their protection. As such, the Children's Amendment Bill must be quickly passed by this august House. Our criminal justice system is urged to impose deterrent sentences to perpetrators of heinous and evil acts against our children. The conduct of some non-governmental organizations and the private voluntary organizations who operate outside their mandates and out of sync with the government's humanitarian priority programs remain a cause for concern. This august House will therefore consider the Private Voluntary Organizations Amendment Bill to revamp the administration of NGOs and the PVOs and correct the current anomalies. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, in conclusion, I wish to remind us all that first and foremost, we are Zimbabweans. This is our only home and our motherland. We are on a new path, a path towards a modern, prosperous, and stronger Zimbabwe. I encourage you all to be partners in this journey. Let us be decisive, deliberate, purposeful, and thorough in all our actions. A brighter future depends on all of us. We are stronger when we work together. We are stronger when we believe and work hard to achieve our plans and vision. No matter the challenges and no matter the obstacles, whether natural or man-made, let us always seek to promote our national interests in unity and love for the development and prosperity of our beloved country. With these remarks, I now have the honor and the privilege to declare the third session of the 9th Parliament of Zimbabwe duly opened. God bless you all. God bless Zimbabwe. I thank you.
of course, being the conclusion of the State of the Nation address by President Emmerson Mnangagwa. And of course, we'll be now taking a greater look at the address that was made by His Excellency. Joining me in studio is a legal analyst, Mr. Vivian Mashabe. Now, we were, of course, talking earlier on before the address from His Excellency, looking at the role and significance of Parliament, the House of Assembly. But let's touch closely at some of the areas that he focused on. It seemed as though that a lot of the key areas are looking at around the economy. And let's pick up on the first that seems to have come up, which was around sanctions.
Okay, the president highlighted that sanctions still remain one of the major challenges that Zimbabwe has to properly functioning as a country, as the economy. And what I was glad about is that in spite of those sanctions, he set out an agenda that seeks to ensure that the framework, the legal framework, is in the right place to advance the economic agenda. We had him speaking about bills touching on agriculture, the sugar industry, tourism, devolution, construction, which shows that there is quite a bit that we can do in spite of the sanctions as a country for us to attain the 2030 vision that we have.
I do want to get back to a few of the bills that were brought up. Before we touch on that, though, of course, we can't avoid discussing the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect that it's had on the Zimbabwean economy. I think His Excellency clearly pointing out that $18 billion are being made available towards at least stabilizing the economy due to the pandemic.
Yes, very true. Which is quite key. We've seen a number of countries implementing various stimulus packages to ensure that they respond to COVID-19. But particularly for Parliament, I would want our Parliament to ensure that they deliver on this agenda. If it means holding meetings virtually, they have to do that. If it means abiding by the regulations that are in place to protect members of the public, they have to do that. But we need to see this agenda being implemented for us to come out of this challenging period as a nation that is geared towards growth and the fulfillment of aspirations of Zimbabweans.
Right. Now, being geared towards growth, the Transitional Stabilization Program, of course, having had its own challenges, but made significant steps towards addressing some of the economic doldrums that Zimbabwe finds themselves in. A key one that I think His Excellency highlighted also, of course, is the current foreign currency exchange auction that currently has been put in place since June. Tell us a bit about TSP, its implementation, especially towards addressing economic hardships in Zimbabwe.
So the TSP was geared towards initially stabilizing the economy and the economic environment, and by and large it has achieved that. The major challenge has been for a great period of time the uncertainty surrounding the exchange rate, the availability of foreign currency in the economy, and with the introduction of the foreign currency exchange market, we've seen the gradual stabilization, not only in terms of the value of the Zimbabwean dollar to the US dollar, but also stabilization in terms of prices, which is where the president then came in and said, look, while we're looking at that aspect, we also need to look at the labor side of things to ensure that at least we then build on the stabilization. He spoke of the national development strategy that is going to inform the 2021 budget going forward for the next 5 years, which I think is key, and that shows that the TSP achieved its target, and now we're then moving on to the development strategy that should guide the economy and the country going forward.
Right. Now, I also do want to slightly draw back on, of course, the Transitional Stabilization Program's inclusion of the foreign exchange auction. Positions have been put forward that are maybe broadening its inclusion towards more operators, or should I say more functionary operators in Zimbabwe, might assist it towards stabilizing the economy.
Yeah, true. When we started off, it was just one auction system that didn't take into account small to medium enterprises. In hindsight, they changed that and introduced an exchange for them as well. Yeah. The broadening of participants in the auction will result in further stabilization of our currency, and also stability for the ordinary person. You get into a shop, you will find that the prices have generally remained stable, right. and that is what I think Zimbabweans are looking forward to. An element of predictability, right. in their way of life, the day-to-day business bread and butter issues for them. But the increase in the number of players in this auction system will go a long way to ensuring that.
Right. I know we'll touch a bit later on energy. His Excellency clearly put out a few measures that have been put in place to address that particular area. But with regards to stability, fuel supply seems to also speak towards an indicator that addresses the stability. Your position on that in terms of pricing, but more importantly, its availability to Zimbabweans?
Very true. Invariably, the pricing of fuel is linked to the price of basic commodities for the ordinary citizen. Gone are the days when we would have long queues at service stations. A lot of productivity time was lost with citizens looking for fuel. And I'm happy that the situation on the ground seems to point to the fact that the fuel situation has vastly improved. Fuel is available. You get to a fueling station, you get your fuel, and you go about your business, which is a marked improvement from right. where we were some time ago.
Right. Of course, without overexposing you on the economic side, I know that your expertise is more legal, but where do we see our stabilization program addressing the current engagement that Zimbabweans are taking to currency exchange? I know that the use of the Zim dollar is the direction that is being taken to at least ensure that is the constant. However, at the same time, the use of the US dollar at the moment seems to be bringing about that stability. Surely there's a transition that we're going to be making where we see stability purely around our own currency.
Very true. It's about ensuring confidence in our own currency. Without the necessary confidence, you will see the kind of hyperinflation, the kind of parallel exchange rates that we were experiencing in the past. But with building confidence in our own currency, even as we are at this point in time using our own Zimbabwean dollar together with other currencies, with time we will move gradually to a phase where the Zimbabwean dollar is the only legal tender in Zimbabwe. But I think for now it is necessary for us to have this framework where the Zimbabwe dollar exists together right. with the US dollar currently. Okay. But then gradually phase out the use of foreign currency by ordinary citizens to then fully use a Zimbabwean dollar once the confidence has been built up in the system.
Right. I know that there are plenty of areas that we can touch on that His Excellency clearly did highlight, but I just do want to quickly touch on issues around the land reform program, rural development, that tying itself into issues around devolution, but more importantly, looking at some of the unemployment benefits that His Excellency seems to have alluded to being a measure being brought forward to address some of the challenges that Zimbabweans are facing at the moment.
I think those are critical. It points to a government that is looking holistically at the challenges that Zimbabwe is facing. It's one thing to just focus on ensuring we have foreign direct investment coming into the country. It's also something else just to focus on labor. We have to look at a holistic approach to the challenges that we're facing, which is why His Excellency touched on the issue of electricity, for example, which is key to to economic growth. He touched on issues of devolution to ensure that every corner of Zimbabwe benefits from development. He touched on agriculture. So it points to an executive, to a government that is tuned in to ensuring that we have a holistic response to the challenges the country is facing.
Final contribution, Mr. Mashabe. What, in your opinion, do you feel that Zimbabweans can take from the State of the Nation address?
Optimism. But like I said, for me, Parliament will be key, ensuring that as an institution they deliver on this legislative agenda. This will involve committees of Parliament taking to task ministries to ensure that the bills that His Excellency has promised actually brought to Parliament, and ensuring that those pieces of legislation are actually passed. A majority of them actually go through. The alignment bills are passed. Bills that have to do with the economy are passed. Right. And I'm sure I hope that by the time we sit for the next SONA in the opening of the next session, we would have made significant progress towards achieving this agenda.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mr. Vivian Mashabe, thank you so much for joining us today, and we definitely look forward to engaging you in future engagements.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Joined in studio, of course, by Mr. Vivian Mashabe, who is a legal analyst, sharing some of his sentiments rather on the State of the Nation address. Shortly, I will be joined back again by Elizabeth Chengeta as we look closer rather at some of the areas that were highlighted by His Excellency President Idi Mnangagwa. Now, of course, looking closely rather at some of the key deliberations that took place over the SONA, of course, looking at the economic changes, the sanctions of COVID having a significant impact, of course. Energy output looking towards being increased as we go throughout 2020. And another key area of the 5-year plan for the National Development Strategy, which will be highlighted in the 2021 budget. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us again. And your comments, rather, on the recent address by His Excellency President Idi Mnangagwa.
Ndoti mutungamiri wenyika vabata nyaya dzakati wandei dzine chekuita nekunoti nyika yedu yabudirira kunyange zvazvo tarohwa nedenda reCovid-19 zviri kuratidza kuti pane zvakawanda zvatasimukira mazviri kunyange zvazvo tiine dambudziko irori reCovid-19 uye zvekare tabata nyaya yekuti pachange pachiona kuti nyaya dzeupfumi hwenyika dzinge dzichisimudzirwa budikidzwa nezvironga zvakawanda zvichange zvichiitwa munyika. Pachinzewopa zvekare panofanirwa kunge paine tarisiro yekuti isusu vana veZimbabwe tibatane tichishanda pamwe chete kuona kuti tagadzirisawo kuti zvinhu zvinge zvichinaka mukati menyika. Nyaya imwe vabata yandifadza takatarisa nenyaya takatarisa nayo zvinezvi nyaya yekunaya kwemvura, nyaya yekurima, chirongwa chepfumvudza cheintwasa, chirongwa chinova chiri kuratidza kuti chiri kugashirwa zvakanyanya munyika uye chakatariswa kuti chingangokwanisa kubatsira kupedza dambudziko rekushomeka kwezvokudya munyika. Tichionawo zvekare ukulungiswa kwemigwaqo izakhiwo elizweni. Ukhulume ngakho njalo esithi lokho kumele kuthuthukiswe, kumele kuqeliswe njalo ukuze ilizwe lithuthuke kunhlelo ezitshiyeneyo. Lapha sibona ukuthi uzulu weZimbabwe kumele naye abe lesandla ekuthuthukiseni lezenhlelo elizweni.
That's it. No, of course, a whole host of areas that we would love to be able to engage further in, looking at, of course, at the key steps rather with today's engagement, that being, of course, the State of the Nation address. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Of course, it's always a pleasure covering a lot of these deliberations here with you in studio.
Ayo ndindofarofara ikuvaniwe nasifuti chiona kuti mutungamiri nyika pangu achitura mashoko akakosha kumhuri yeZimbabwe. Don't end.
That's it. My name is Farai Gwazi. Thank you so much for joining us in this special broadcast. Stay tuned for more viewing.